Hey there, this is Elias Whitfield, and this is the Freedom in Leaving podcast, where I talk about what it really takes to build a life somewhere else. He said I was too old, too broke, and a coward for leaving America. Weeks later, he's buying a condo in Brazil. Not only was I shouting back, but I wanted to physically throttle him. Lay not so holy hands all over his body and give him the thorough beatdown he so richly deserved for coming into our home, eating our food, and drinking our wine, then shouting and insulting the two of us in front of our dinner guests. 20-year friendship officially dead. But let's rewind. Let's start from the very, very, very beginning where all this first started. A while ago, the grits hit the ceiling with some of my friends, and I say friends with the quotation marks around them, the moment I told them of my plans to leave America and to move to South Africa full time. Instead of returning their fire with fire, which I kind of did, I harkened back to the advice I remember two different senior pastors preached one time. One said, we have to learn how to love some of our family members and friends from a distance. Love that person who gets on your last damn nerve the moment you see them. Yes, that person. Do the wave, the smile, and say goodbye as quickly as possible. But another spiritual leader put it differently. She said, release people to their highest good. Cut them loose. Let them keep growing, even if you're not there to watch it happen. So I really want to hold on to that thought, because there's a major twist coming at the very end. In addition to the usual logistics, paperwork, visas, income, and bank account creations, the process of leaving America comes with varied emotional reactions from friends and family. Here's what nobody quite explains in gritty, needy detail. The moment you announce you're leaving, your family and friendship circle stops being a circle. It suddenly becomes a rigid rectangle divided into 4 quadrants. And you need to know which box everyone falls into as quickly as possible. First, there's quadrant A. They're affirming. These are the people who are genuinely happy for you, even if the news comes as a complete surprise to them. The second it comes out of your mouth, they knew right then for this was the right move for you, whether they'd ever done it themselves or not. My partner and I, out of our entire circle of family and friends, our whole rectangle had exactly one person who fell firmly in this box. He'd already moved to Mexico a couple years before us, already living the expat life, already traveled through a bunch of countries, including several in Africa, including South Africa. He told us about his experience there and why he picked Mexico over it. Not once was he discouraging or disparaging. Sure, he wanted us to consider Mexico, wanted us near him, if we were being honest, but he understood we had our own criteria and our own path and our own goals to run down. So one person out of everybody was in quadrant A, the affirming. Quadrant B, the loving bystanders. Now this is where most of our family and friends actually live. On the dial, in the box, in the rectangle, whatever you want to call it. They are affirming, but they're also bystanders. They don't quite fully understand what we're doing or why, but if it makes us genuinely happy, they're for it. Yes, they worry for us. Crime, safety, money, visa issues, missing family events back home, the usual list. But there is a difference between this group and the group that's coming up after this one. You see, this group isn't saying don't go. They're not saying you can't go. They've accepted the choice, although they may not like it. And every once in a while, they send us a text or email about something they heard or read in the news about South Africa. usually about load shedding or the water infrastructure, or lately about the 2026 anti-immigrant protests happening as a backlash against other African immigrants. But it's rare. So they saw something, thought of us, and wanted us to know about it. And if we hadn't seen it yet, they wanted to make sure that we had seen it. It's never a gotcha, never a aha, I told you so moment meant to guilt you into not moving. You see, category B, their concern is love. Nothing else riding underneath it, just love. Now there's quadrant C, the borderline alarmist. On the surface, category C looks just like category B. Affirming, concerned, same words coming out of their mouths, but the frequency is different, and the tone underneath it is different too. You see, I had someone send me a video of a black expat getting kicked out of a country because they didn't understand the visa rules. He also sent me a video of a woman aggressively telling black Americans to keep our, quote, black asses out of Africa, that they don't want us there, and that they hate us. He also sent a whole flurry of messages built around a false claim that our visas would be in jeopardy, or that we wouldn't be able to hold dual citizenship, which was never something we were even planning on doing to begin with, since we're going the permanent the permanent residency route instead. This particular person, in generally, is positive about us going, affirming even. But he also said outright he couldn't see himself doing it, that he needs to stay near the remainder of his family, and that he can't fathom giving up Medicare as a health backstop. All of that is completely understandable, okay? Which I acknowledge and accept it. But then the flurry hits begin, okay? The alarmist emails, the borderline stuff, doubting everything he just told me he supported. We have exactly one person who resides firmly in that box C, quadrant C, the borderline alarmist. Then finally we get to quadrant D, the aggressive. And this is the most aggressive category there is. Aggressive in determination, in doggedness, in their sheer will to stop you from leaving at all costs if they actually could have that power. This is the person who pulls out every argument out the handbook. Argument 1, quote, "What have you lost over there? You ain't got nothing over there." Argument number 2, "Why won't you just wait for it to get better after Trump leaves office? You can use your political power by voting and encouraging others to vote. Vote for a better day. Vote for a better tomorrow." Then there's argument 3. "What about the younger folks coming behind you? They need you to help fight for them. You're being selfish by leaving. People fought and died during the civil rights so that you could have a better life. So you need to do the same and stay and fight for the ones coming after you." And there's argument number 4. "The ancestors bled and died. They were enslaved, built this country, and you just handed it over to people who don't want you here to begin with. You're being a coward. You're being scared." Well, all of this came from my new former friend, and I do mean former. He conjured up every one of these arguments and actually threw in a few more of his own. So here's the tea. My partner and I were hosting a jovial little dinner party. But by the end of the night, it had turned into a very loud, bitter argument with this one person standing there declaring practically before God and all the angels above that we hadn't prepared for any of this, that we hadn't done a lick of research, couldn't possibly afford to move, and we hadn't thoroughly thought through the many complexities of such a large-scale move. And finally, he said we were too old, about to be sick soon, and again, couldn't afford to do any of this. Deep breath, y'all. Deep breaths. Long, deep breaths. I wasn't just shouting back at this point. Every holy thought I had left in my body and was doing the math on exactly how much trouble I'd be in if I were to lay hands on this man. Would it? You just can't believe how angry I was. He came in and ate our food and drank our wine, and yet he's staying in our living room insulting us in front of our friends. Our 20-year friendship literally is over now. Gone in one dinner. I still don't know where he got the impression about us from. We never once discussed our finances or our health, for that matter, with him. Never talked about leaving the country at all until that exact conversation. But here's a really odd thing I've noticed about people. If you haven't previously told them about a specific goal or interest you might have, when you finally tell them, when it finally shows up, okay, fully baked and ready to go, they can't believe you're doing it. You never mentioned leaving the country before, so it must be frivolous. Never mentioned wanting to learn to play the guitar, so that's just a silly thing too, you know? Never mentioned having a taste for country music, so that can't be real either, you know? Because my former friend had never heard about the research that we had done, so in his mind, there was no research. Kind of odd how that works. So we literally caught him completely off guard, by surprise, and so he didn't. So he decided that that meant that we were unprepared, because we caught him completely off guard. He thought that we were unprepared. I'll say that one more time. Because we caught him completely off guard. He decided that meant that we were unprepared, and not that we had simply never brought him into the whole process initially, but we were just not prepared. But I still gave him the benefit of the doubt, okay, at first. I just because I hadn't confided in him about the months of preparation and research we'd already had put in didn't mean it hadn't happened, because it had. He then began to counter with his own experiences, since he had lived overseas himself for many years. But here's the kicker, y'all. Listen carefully. He never once coordinated any of those moves overseas. Never paid for a single one of them. The government did that, because he worked for the government as a contractor and again as an employee. So I told him straight up, how do you know what it takes to do any of this? To build your life from scratch overseas? What do you know about the energy it needs to take to build it? You haven't done it yourself. You've always had housing waiting for you. Always had a car. Always had an apartment lined up. Income already flowing. You didn't create any of it from scratch, the way that we're doing it right now. Of course it looks impossible to you, because you've never done it. So I watched the wheels in his head slow down just a little bit after that. But he still wasn't done yet. He said it costs way too much money for us to move. Again, I'm not really sure where he got this idea that we couldn't afford it. We never discussed money with him. All right. So he kept with that argument. And then I reminded him that he'd never paid for his move in his life either. He countered that he had paid taxes on it. Fine, you paid taxes on the move, but you didn't pay for the move itself. Okay, and then just in conversation back and forth, it came out that he was moving his entire household from country to country for years. I'm talking about every stick of furniture he owned, every area rug, every dresser drawer, every china cabinet, every couch. He had moved from country to country. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I told him that's not how expats move. You sell everything. You give it away. You don't carry your house with you overseas. We told him that, whatever we can fit into a backpack, a couple pieces of luggage, and a few boxes, that's it. That's what we're bringing over. At that point, the wheels in his head slowed down again. But that's when he landed on our age. Now, mind you, he just turned 50, so he's no spring chicken himself. All right, but he had this temerity, this boldness, this brashness to say that we were just plain too old to move now. Well, I'm 55 and my partner's 63. We both feel spry and healthy. We don't have any issues. So we'd rather move now sooner than later, obviously. Okay, and get settled in. Then my former friend made the assumption that we had not looked into insurance, which we had. We knew Medicare didn't travel, and we were planning on buying private insurance. But we also told him that a lot of people were just paying out of pocket, which is cheaper than anything else. But we were going to stick with private insurance. So once we swatted down that argument about insurance, he went on to the next argument. He said, what if you don't like it? You're too old to move again. All right. And by now, that's getting old. Okay. He was running out of the road of arguments. And I told him again, we're not hauling furniture across the ocean from country to country like he did. We're moving from one furnished apartment to the next furnished apartment in another country. There's nothing for us to move again. We can just do it. We can buy a ticket and go. Okay? For us personally, South Africa is the answer. But we do have a plan B, some backups. We looked at Botswana, Mauritius, Cape Verde, Costa Rica, and Mexico. So those are our plan B and C countries. Okay? But he had just assumed we hadn't done any of that thought process. And I'm not sure why he thought that, but again, he thought it. Then he came to the topic of, we need your vote. And I told him we can still vote, absentee by mail. Well, we can still need your political presence, he countered. I said, well, what? You need me to go marching up and down the street yelling at a protest? No, thank you. Voting is what gets votes, not yelling and screaming. Okay? Then he got visibly agitated and said, well, wait a minute. What about the youth? The young. He pulled out the youth young generation card. The young people need you, and if everybody leaves, they won't have a life that they deserve. And I told him that I've done all I can do. I voted correctly in every election. I said that the ones who sat out the November 5th, 2024 election, or threw their vote away on a third-party candidate, or voted Republican, all them folks can go pick up the fight now. And the young folks, they didn't vote, really. I said the ones that have been carrying the torch all these years by voting, now let's hand it to the young folks. They're going to have to start voting. If they skip voting, they're going to have to start doing it again. Those young folks who always get on social media criticizing Democratic candidates, well, now they're feeling the backhand of the Republican rule. Maybe now they can pull up their pants, put down the blunt, and vote for themselves now versus waiting for other older generations to vote for them. By now, I could see the fire in his eyes had nearly flamed out. He was done for, but then, out of nowhere, he rose from the ashes of certain defeat to bring forth the Hail Mary of passes, the mother of all arguments, the I'm coming to glory, the big one. He said, your ancestors bled and died to be in this country so you could live free. In other words, he was saying, in not so many words, that we dishonored the people who were dragged here against their will and tortured. And we dishonored them by trying to extricate ourselves from this country. Forgetting the fact that their whole history of great famous black people who packed up and left and went to France not too long ago, about 50, 60 years ago. Needless to say, well, you know what? Let's back up. The fact that whole argument about the slaves really irks me even more because they sat through hell and couldn't find a way out. He's inferring that, well, I should be able to sit through hell, but I can find my way out. But I should sit through hell anyhow because the slaves did it. See how warped that is? And then back in the 50s, World War II, Black folks were going out to France, 60s, 70s, Europe. But anyhow, needless to say, the dinner party ended on a sour note. I didn't want to see that man ever again. But a few weeks later, he reached out and we agreed actually to have dinner at a Vietnamese restaurant with the not too far from where I live. And so when we met up, within the first 10 minutes, he asked me, "So, why South Africa? Why not Brazil?" And I asked him right back, "Why not South Africa?" Turns out he has an affinity for Brazilian and Latin men, which is fine by me. No judgment here. My partner and I are both black, so we want to be around black people. And that's not a knock against anybody else. So Brazil was out of the question. Plus, we don't speak Portuguese. So there. Then he said something that I never expected to hear out of his mouth. He said that he was thinking about leaving too. What the F? What the F? Shut the front door and the back one too. He said that he's buying a condo in Brazil or Panama as an investment for now, staying put until he retires. And I told him that's exactly what we're doing. I'm about 10 years from retirement myself, but I'm leaving now instead of waiting. And my partner will be retired by the time we get there. So there's no real difference between his plan and ours. I'm just going first. Then, what I realized sitting over my faux noodle dish is that he had spent the entire dinner party pressure testing our decision for his own sake. Somewhere deep down, he wanted to make the move himself. He was afraid of how to do it, and instead of coming to me and saying, as a friend, I got some concerns about this, help work me through this, okay? Instead of saying that, he came out swinging like a fire and brimstone pastor, banging the pulpit about why we couldn't leave, why we couldn't afford it, why we were too old, why we were selfish, and why we needed to stay and fight and be miserable in a country we didn't want to live in anyhow, or anymore. That tone softened dramatically weeks later, but weeks too late. We're not friends anymore. I forgave that interrogation. I forgave that interrogation, but I can't forget it. He's currently doing almost the exact same thing we're doing, buying property, planning a move, but he's just waiting for retirement to pull the trigger. I'm going before retirement and buying once I land. It's the same road. He was just too scared to admit that he was standing on it too, until I showed up and I shined the flashlight to see how he could get there himself. So here's the moral of the story. If there is one. Your circle is going to become a rectangle the second you say the words out loud. There will be 4 quadrants. You need to figure out really, really fast where everyone is going to fall into that quadrant and make peace with those people. Bless them, lead them to their highest good. You have to love people from a distance, not close up, not in your daily life, but from a distance, and then you have to release them to whatever highest good turns out for them to be. And you have to let go and not stand in the middle of it, of their evolution. So I hereby release my category D, quadrant D, former friend to his highest spiritual good. And guess what? You're going to have to do the exact same thing for your people. Love them from a distance. Release them to their highest good. That's the whole practice. Okay? And so with that, I just want to wish you great success on your own journey. And I can't wait to see where in the world you end up next. And that is it for this one. If I hit something in you and you want to reach out, please do. And if you want to order or read my book, The Freedom in Leaving, Links are in the bio. The book is being released in October 2026, but there are plenty of podcasts and essays and video for you to read upon, feast upon until then. My website is thefreedominleaving.com. Again, thefreedominleaving.com. And also, touch back here again pretty soon for more podcasts at my Substack.